In a village in Pakistan, there lived a poor farmer named Yusuf. He had 3 sons and a daughter. Yusuf worked in the fields all day, doing farming. He also kept animals at his farm, fed them fodder, and in the evening, milked the buffalo and walked to his village carrying the milk. His village was about 5 kilometers away from his farm. Every morning, he would walk the 5 kilometers to his farm, and every evening, he would walk back, always carrying something with him, either produce in the morning or milk and vegetables in the evening. Now Yusuf had grown old and was tired. His children had grown up. His eldest son, Rajab, insisted that he wanted to improve the family's condition by going abroad to earn money so that the family could live a better life, and the burden on his aging father could be reduced. He asked his father for money to apply for a visa. The agent demanded 1.5 million Pakistani rupees for the process. Rajab got 500,000 from his father and borrowed the remaining 1 million from relatives. The visa was for Malaysia, and from there, the agent promised to get Rajab to America through illegal migration, known as the donkey route. Rajab had heard about this method but had no idea how hard it would be. At home, he had an old mother, 2 younger brothers, and a sister. Before leaving, his father wished for Rajab to get married so that they could have a grandchild and some joy in the house. So Rajab's father invited the whole family, neighbors, and community and arranged a grand Punjabi-style wedding. In Punjab, weddings involve drums, dancers, and week-long celebrations where a lot of money is spent. A local tradition also involves throwing money over the groom, regardless of the family's financial status, and children collected. Rajab's wedding was celebrated with great joy. Everyone was happy that he was going abroad. Neither Rajab nor his father was educated, so they didn't fully understand the visa or donkey process. After the wedding, Rajab's visa arrived, and the ticket was scheduled for 2 months later. He was happy and received congratulations from relatives for managing to gather so much money with their help. Just before leaving, Rajab found out his wife was pregnant. With this joyous news, he reached the airport. His entire family came to bid him farewell. He flew to Malaysia, where an agent received him and took him away. Only then did Rajab realize that the journey to America would be on foot. He had only heard the word donkey route, but had no idea what it truly meant. In Malaysia, Rajab met 32 other young men from Pakistan who were also trying to go abroad to support their families. The agent planned to cross the Malaysian border at 3 a.m. They packed food and water and successfully crossed the border illegally. From there, they traveled across mountains and seas through various countries until they reached the jungles of Africa. In Africa, they were told to wait for 8 days until another group arrived, and then all would be sent to America by boat. The next 8 days were extremely hard. There was no food or water. They survived by eating tree leaves. The agents treated them worse than animals, beating anyone who spoke or asked for food. In the jungle, they saw decayed human bones, victims who had died from hunger or wild animals. Rajab and others were locked in a dark room and only given 1 pack of biscuits each in the evening. The journey turned into a terrifying nightmare. Those who begged for help were shot dead in front of everyone. Rajab and his companions could do nothing but weep silently. Nights were filled with eerie animal sounds, or perhaps spirits. The locals were ruthless, heartless people and treated outsiders like animals. The African tribes wore leaves as clothes. The women wore large iron rings in their noses and lips, which was considered beautiful. Rajab saw all this and lost hope of ever reaching America. A week passed, and 3 days remained. A new group arrived, more desperate people from Pakistan and India. The locals shoved them into the room and told them they would be moved after 3 days. After 3 painful days, Rajab and the others were taken to the sea, where they would be transported in boats. The agent paid the African locals for hosting them. Even though everything was done illegally, there were about 40 people, split into 2 boats, 20 in each. The agent told them to stay silent. The journey to America was supposed to take 4 days. They were given the same food, biscuits and a cup of tea, and no one spoke to them. The agent remained behind. The people in the boats were determined to change their fate. As the boats sailed through the dark waters, Rajab remembered his home, his new wife, and the joyful moments he had spent with her. But he also thought about his aging father and wanted to ease the burden on his tired shoulders. He wanted to become the support his father needed. Rajab sat quietly in the boat, thinking deeply. He imagined a future where, once he was settled in America, he would call his wife and unborn child to join him. They would live together happily, and he would finally feel fulfilled. The cold was intense, and everyone on the boat was silent and scared. The evening sky, the freezing sea, and the crashing waves pulled everyone into a deep, dark mood. Suddenly, the boat slowed down. One of the two men from the boat's crew stood up and said, "The boat is breaking down. We're still 24 hours away from reaching America, and there's no rescue boat nearby. Our lives are in danger." As soon as he said this, panic broke out. People started screaming, terrified at the thought of being stranded in the middle of the ocean. Rajab immediately remembered the news stories he had seen as a child about boats sinking and people dying at sea. But what happened next was horrifying. Two young boys who were crying loudly were picked up alive and thrown into the ocean. Everyone fell silent, paralyzed by fear. The crew members shouted angrily, "If anyone else dares to cry or make noise, the same will happen to you." The man himself wore a rescue jacket, but didn't give any to the passengers. There were only 2 jackets on the entire boat. The boat began to rock violently. Rajab started screaming for help, but no one listened. No one even knew what had happened to the other boat, whether those people had survived or vanished. One by one, the cruel crew members began throwing people alive into the sea. Rajab and his 2 friends watched in silence, unable to speak, their hearts breaking with every splash. The man shouted at them, "You will die here too. Your agent didn't pay us enough to take you to America. This is where your journey ends, in the sea." Rajab and his friends begged for mercy, offered to send more money, even pleaded to be taken back to Africa. But the crew refused. They were speaking in a foreign language among themselves, planning everything. Eventually, they intentionally drowned everyone. And then the 2 crew members jumped into the sea wearing rescue jackets, abandoning the sinking boat. Rajab and his 2 companions clung to the dying boat, crying and asking God for forgiveness. The ocean waves were fierce. It was evening, and the sea had already swallowed countless lives. A massive wave came, and the boat flipped, taking Rajab and his friends with it. They were gone. These were men who had left their homes to change their family's fate, but now there were not even bodies left to return home. The second boat was still missing. No one knew if they had survived or not. After a while, a rescue boat arrived, operated by a kind Muslim African sailor. He documented the entire tragedy and said, "I don't know how many boats come like this every day and how many lives are lost. People take loans, give hope to their poor parents, and then vanish in the sea. It would be so much better if they traveled legally to another country and built a life there." The sailor sat by the shore grieving and later confronted the cruel smugglers. "Why do you do this to innocent people?" But there was no law here against this donkey route. Everything illegal was done in the shadows. Back in Pakistan, Rajab's family waited for news of his arrival in America. His wife, who was pregnant, had no idea her husband had died in an African jungle sea. The news came from a TV report. A boat carrying 32 Pakistanis trying to reach America via the donkey route from Africa has sunk. When the family investigated and pleaded with the government, it was confirmed Rajab was among them. But now, who would they file a case against? Who would listen to their pain? The money was borrowed, 1.5 million rupees. How would they ever repay it? Rajab's son was born, and one day he told his mother, "Mama, I will take revenge for my father's death." But he didn't know who was responsible. The same poverty that had scared Rajab into taking this dangerous journey would now raise his son. His wife, now a widow in her 30s, grew old before her time. Her hair turned gray. His father waited for death. His old mother couldn't even walk. Rajab's son would grow up facing the same fate, trying to pay off his father's debt. The story ends with a message. If you want to earn money, choose legal ways. Think of your family. Don't leave your children orphaned in your pursuit of a better life.